Now, whereas multi-domain structures may not be the boundary of security, multi-forest structures can actually be. And multiple forest structures they're actually kind of cool. And whereas most organizations try not to create, purposely create additional domains, a lot of times they find themselves creating a multi-forest structure, sometimes by accident. So let's talk about first what a multi-forest structure is, and then we'll talk about what those happy or unhappy accidents may be. Let's assume, for example, that we have our organization here, company.pri, right? That is the forest, and then inside of company.pri there may be a variety of different domains. Well, let's say that company.pri, for one reason or another, needed to merge with another existing forest, like a merger or an acquisition, like we bought another company, like the two were created at different points in time by two competing IT departments, and as a result, we have two independent structures. Well, this multiple forest structure is created when I take the two independent forests and connect them together through a specifically laid down trust. Anytime I'm creating any kind of connection from domain to domain or multiple domains to multiple domains, a trust is necessary. And it's that trust that carries the weight of one's authentication and one's privileges from one forest out to the other. It's the trust that allows privileges from one forest to be used, or membership in groups in one forest to be used in another forest. And what's important here is that while the trusts exist and are automatically created in a multi-domain structure, any kind of multi-forest structure requires the manual creation of trusts. Now, okay, well, these domains here are going to have obviously potentially a variety of other domains, so they may have their own, multi-domain structure that is part of the multi-forest structure that we're creating. So you see here why that whole single forest, single domain infrastructure can be that desired state, because things can easily get very complicated if for one day you wake up and suddenly you've acquired a new company with its entire forest and domain structure that you have to pull into place. Now, gosh, okay, this is quite complicated, though. Why would I go about creating an even more complex situation with a multi-forest structure than what I'm already seeing with a multi-domain structure? Well, what's interesting is that multi-forest structures, they're kind of half and half when it comes to, or not quite half and half, when it comes to why multiple forest structures end up happening. The first reason that they happen is mainly just because of business decisions that have been made. As I said, sometimes you just wake up and your company has purchased another company, and you get an email from your CIO saying, hey, by the way, I need you to create a trust with that forest so that we and the other company can begin to share resources between the two forests. A merger and an acquisition is something that typically happens outside the purview of the IT department. So it is an accidental reason why a multi-forest structure can be required, if sometimes for a very short period of time. There are also a couple of other technical reasons why multi-forest structures can get laid into place, and the first of which is if you have multiple forests or more than one forest that have different requirements for its Active Directory schema. Now, you've probably talked a bit about Active Directory schemas in some of the 410 and 411 content, but the schema is essentially Active Directory's database. The schema itself is the structure of the database, and then the data goes into that structure, into that schema. Different solutions, like Exchange being a notable one, Configuration Manager being another notable one, will actually go about changing the Active Directory schema. And when that happens, sometimes you can end up with different requirements that are not compatible. So forest number 1 has a particular need for a schema that completely doesn't work with forest number 2, and so you have to have two forests because there's two different schemas. The other reason is, and this is a big one, Exchange organizations. And this honestly is kind of just it's really kind of a different 80 schema requirement. In Exchange, you're only allowed to have one organization per forest. And so if you need more than one Exchange organization, well, then you need more than one forest. So these are some of the, although not entirely all the reasons why multiple forest structures can get created. The first of which here is probably the most incidental, the most accidental that can occur. Now, one little side note here, and this is something just kind of pay attention to when you're creating additional domain controllers in forests and forest and multi-forest structures, are actually the permissions that are required in order to accomplish these variety of tasks. there are different permissions that are required in order to accomplish these different connections of different domain and forest objects together. This is, I don't know, to me this just makes a perfect test question. To build a new forest, you must be a local administrator on the machine that will become the first domain controller in that forest. Obviously, you can't be an enterprise admin or domain admin because no domain exists. To build a new domain tree or a child domain, you must be an enterprise admin. So if you don't have enterprise admins, you can't actually create child domains. In many organizations, you find domain admins who have enterprise admin access also, but be very cautious there because the number of actions that you have to have enterprise admin in order to accomplish is relatively small in compared to what domain admin actions should be. It's generally a best practice to leave your enterprise admin group empty until you are reasonably empty until you actually need to make use of it, just to protect you against those very large scale possible big oopses that could happen. The third thing here is to add additional domain controllers. To add a new domain controller, you only have to be a domain admin. So you're not changing a structure here. You're just adding a new DC to provide more supportability for that domain. So you only have to be a domain admin to do that.